What's up, everybody? I'm Richard.
And I'm Shawn.
And we're speaking the language of bromance. And Shawn, how are you, good sir? I've missed your face like the face of someone I've missed.
Well, Richard, tomorrow, after this episode drops, I'm going to be 35 years old. I'm going to be on the other side of 30.
Yeah.
I'm closer to death.
Don't do that. Stop it. I'm older than you. No, not 40. I'm not going to be 40. I'm right there. I'm going to be 39.
Yeah. Oh, I thought you were 37. Damn.
Fuck.
I was laying in bed the other night. I'm like, man, it's going to suck to be 34. And I was like, oh, shit, I'm going to be 35.
You're at the age now where you've lost track.
Yeah. Well,
that happened to me. That did happen to me where I was like, how old am I? 30? And I was always like a year off.
Yeah. 25, I think, was when that started happening to me. Because like 25 is your last like milestone.
I think it was like 30 in my early 30s, like 32, 33.
Well, Richard, to celebrate my steps closer to death, I thought we should talk about the death of a tried and true TV show that you and I have both watched and loved.
An American institution filmed in Canada.
In Canada. It takes place in the heartland of Kansas, but is filmed in Manitoba.
Vancouver, right? That's where
I
they
think it's
shoot.
Vancouver.
Yeah, Vancouver's where they
That's where they shoot everything on CW.
Yeah.
But Richard, Supernatural has been on TV since 2005 and has finally come to a close after 15 seasons.
That is okay. So that is a testament for that's amazing for any show. Any show.
Yeah. Firefly only got one season.
Yeah. You just like bringing up painful things. I feel like that's that's your job today.
Yeah. Angel got like 5, but it didn't even really end.
No, not really.
I was gonna say like the show's like 15-year run towards the end, but I think it's a good time to talk about it. Like, so this is a show about two guys in a car in Anywhere USA, and I think the death of a lot of shows whenever they get super popular is viewership starts to go down, and payroll starts to go up.
Yes,
because
I think that was definitely Angel's downfall, because I think after like 5 seasons, then that's when everybody's rates start going up, and the shows usually get way more expensive after the 5th season.
But like with this show, it's two guys, so yeah, I mean, I'm sure their salaries have continued to go up. There's a couple other characters who've been there for a while, but your backdrop is, you could film literally in the same town, just pick different spots.
Yeah.
Or you're out in the countryside. There's some big effects, but for the most part, nothing that probably can't be done on the weekend by people now.
Yeah, you feel like you've seen everywhere in Vancouver by the time this show's over.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's nowhere left.
But what I love is like you could film in the exact same location, be like, oh, well, this is, St. Louis, Illinois. This is St. Louis, Missouri. This is Kansas City, Missouri. Kansas City, Kansas. But I mean, it's definitely, my journey with Supernatural. So it had to have started, I think, in 2008 or 2009 when Netflix still had discs, because I watched the first 3 or 4 seasons on disc from Netflix.
Yeah.
And I got caught up. So one of the things
I watched it when it was actually on TV. That's when I started watching it, because my dad was like really, really like, oh, you should watch the show. It's really good. And it was like, I think it was the lead off after Buffy, because this is when Buffy was still on the WB.
No, this came out in 2005. So Buffy was already over.
Right. Okay. So yeah, Buffy ended and moved to.
No, I mean, Buffy was done.
Was done?
Yeah, because Angel ended in 2004. Because I tried to see that too, because this is the only show in CW WB history that was on the WB and the CW.
Well, what I'm thinking is they put Supernatural in there as a way to like retain the audience that Buffy left.
Yeah, it definitely was kind of like here, because it was Angel ended in May of 2004, and this started in like September, October of 2005.
Yes.
So this was kind of like, okay, you've been waiting 1.5 years for your Supernatural show.
Yeah.
Guess what? Here it is. Supernatural. What's the title?
No, that's it. We didn't want to bury the lead. So we figured, how are they going to know that it's about supernatural stuff?
Call it Supernatural.
Nailed it.
But so
I'm not reinventing the fucking wheel here.
I've kind of run the gamut on it because like the first 3 or 4 seasons I watched all on disc and I got caught up, and like the next like 4 or 5 seasons I watched live, and then I kind of fell off, and then I started binging it. So I've gone from like the old school disc, week to week, watching it week to week, to binging it like a whole season in a month. I feel like this is the case of most people. I totally roller coastered through Supernatural, where like you'd watch a whole season and you're like, oh, this show's really good. And then you get busy or whatever and you miss like an entire season and you're like, it probably wasn't that good anyway. And then you come back to it. So like I would constantly like dip in and out of it. At this point, like I think I've seen the first 5 seasons, and then I started watching the 6th, and the 6th was terrible. What was the 6th season?
6th season was the one with fucking it was Crowley, who was the king of hell, and he was working with fucking Cass, the angel, and like basically like you kind of find out that Cass is like trying to be a little bit of the bad guy. That's where they start going into the what are they called? The big worm looking things.
Leviathan?
Yes. Yes. Okay. I did not get into season 6 at all.
Was that the season Bobby died?
I have no idea.
I remember that being a sad like episode. But no, I'm the same way. I've dipped my toes in it. I try to like figure out a good comparison for that too. And what I consider Supernatural to be is like a good frozen pizza.
Okay.
So you've got like 6 or 7 frozen pizzas. You throw them in your freezer. You come home. You're hungry. You want something, but you don't want leftovers. You don't want to try something new, like make a whole meal. You open that freezer, and what's there? That classic Tombstone frozen pizza. It's tasted.
For me, it's Totino's, but I get the metaphor.
Red Baron and Tombstone.
Oh my God, that fucking Totino's pizza that you put in basically you just put it in the oven and then you come out and you don't even cut it. You just fold it like a taco and just nom, 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 nom.
But yeah, it's like, it's not like great. It's not, revolutionary, but you know what? That Tombstone, that Tostina's you ate like 7 years ago gives you the exact same feelings today.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's what this is. Cause like, when I'm sitting there, for a while, my wife, she would, Tiffany, she would go to see her friends. I'd sit there. I'm like, well, maybe I should watch something. I'm like, do I want to start something new? Do I want to do this? I'm like, you know what? I need to catch up on Supernatural. So I pop that frozen pizza, that Supernatural in. I start watching it.
Yeah. The point I was making before about the roller coaster thing is like I've dipped in and out of it. And so there's whole seasons that I didn't watch, but then I would come back and I didn't really feel like I missed a lot.
No, it's got a very like, I think a lot of shows like this have that, but a very Days of Our Lives soap opera feel.
A little bit, yeah.
Where you can kind of pop into any season and get caught up pretty quick about what's happening.
The only thing I could compare it to is in terms of shows that have run a very, very long time. Obviously, the first one I think of is Doctor Who. Doctor Who's been on television for 50 plus years.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't on TV like we're not talking 50 full seasons, but it's been on television for 50 years. And with Doctor Who, like you could definitely like miss some, come back and figure things out fairly quickly. There are, Monster of the Week episodes in Doctor Who, but even ones that like there's an overarching story, usually the overarching story will last for a season.
Yeah. Yeah.
The only thing that's really concurrent in Doctor Who, I would say is the Doctor and like 2 or 3 key villains.
Yeah. Well, and like this, I mean, usually you get to the end of the season. I think for most of them, they kind of like the last episode will kind of cue up what might happen in the next season.
Right.
But you can pick that up pretty quick, right when you pick up that next season.
Exactly.
I think what I was watching it pretty religiously. It's funny with this show when you think about it, because in 2005 when this came out, this was definitely the, like, if you miss a week, you're missing the whole episode.
Yeah.
I think the CW and WB would play like reruns of it like the same week, or maybe like the day before or whatever.
Yeah, something like that.
But in the first few seasons of this, it was definitely like old school style watching TV, and it's kind of run the gamut of everything. Like this is kind of like, I mean, like I said, it's done regular TV, it's done like the Netflix DVDs,
yeah,
it's done Netflix streaming, and then it's done where you can buy it like on Amazon Prime the day it comes out.
Yeah. Very true.
I followed it pretty religiously up to the point, I don't remember what season it was, if it was 11 or 12, where Dean ends up becoming a demon.
I think I dipped out of that one.
Yeah, and like I was like, oh my God, this is going to be awesome. Like that's such a like interesting idea. And then the very first episode of the next season, he's like just Dean, but he's kind of like, you know, no care in the world Dean.
Yeah. It's like emo Tobey Maguire in Spider-Man.
Yeah.
3.
Oh, exactly. Great point. Yeah. Because I wanted like this like Dean who's like, I'm gonna be the king of hell.
Yeah, yeah.
And no, it's like I'm playing pool and drinking beer and I'm gonna have sex with that lady. Like, oh, all right.
And you're like, how does this differ from your usual behavior?
Yeah. Besides not killing monsters or technically having a soul, but you do. But what got me back into it was I think probably it might have been the last season you watched, because you told me that God was back, and you're like, yes. I won't tell you who God is. And I was like, is it Chuck? You're like, holy shit, you're a fucking genius. It is.
That's exactly what happened.
I was like, well, I mean, they kind of like alluded to that because he wrote the books, and like I think he disappeared at the end, so like I just assumed he was.
One thing I did like about Supernatural in general was I think that they knew that their audience was like not they weren't like avid, like, oh my God, I got to watch every single episode every week. Because once you got to the season finale, they would spend the first like 60 seconds basically giving you the entire season arc.
Yeah, played by, what song would they play?
Oh, it was Carry On My Wayward Son.
Oh, yeah, it was great.
That's the thing I always liked. It's like, if you missed a season, it's like, it's fine. Just watch the season finale and you'll get caught up on everything in the first 2 minutes.
Which is smart. And like, I like shows that do that, because even on Netflix, they'll skip that unless you tell it not to. Mm-hmm. But I mean, there's so many, like, they'll be like, you know, they'll flash back like 6 seasons ago, which at this point is like, 8-9 years ago. And they show like this one character, like, oh yeah, I remember them. Like, oh, I bet they're going to show up.
I bet he's going to be in it.
And then you like think it in your head, and then you see him like, oh, I'm a genius. I should write this shit.
Why are they telling me about this why are they reintroducing me to this person that I saw 5 years? Oh.
So I've got all caught up, and I was wanting to watch this final season kind of week to week, but I just didn't end up getting caught up to it in time. But I was only like, I think I saw the season finale like a week after it came out. So I was pretty well caught up. This last season wasn't too bad.
Did any of it get spoiled for you? I think that's a good question.
No. So in the finale, the only thing that got spoiled, which didn't ruin it for me because I was expecting it, was the death of Dean.
Whoa, spoiler. Jeez.
Well, I mean, we're talking about it, so obviously it's spoilers.
Point. Yeah.
You know, like I saw people tweeting about it. Nobody spoiled exactly how it happened. You just saw a lot of like, oh my God, I can't believe that's how it happened. This is total bullshit. This is the worst ending ever. This is worse than Game of Thrones.
So, okay. So when it came to the finale in general, you were like, oh, I'm going to watch the Supernatural finale. And I said, and this is even before it came out, I was like, how are you going to end that show? Like the show that's been on for 15 years. I feel like there's no way that you're going to end that show where your entire audience is happy.
Yeah. Well, we talked about it because I think when we were discussing it, it was right when the details came out of people being pissed. And, you know, we were saying it's like, okay, well, either A, it's a sacrifice, which would be very cliche.
Either A, they both die.
Yeah. Or C, they survive and it's like they ride off in the sunset. It's really not an ending.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of those endings, not endings kind of thing, which that always irritates me more than anything. So it's like, well, the story hasn't ended. Like, there's more story.
Yeah.
You know, like Buffy, when Buffy ended. It's like, well, it didn't really end.
Yeah, it's not over. Like,
Angel.
She's still alive. She can do stuff.
They just talked about a Hellmouth in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And then Angel, it's like, wait, but no, it's not over. There's a dragon. He said he wants to ride it.
There's a dragon, and it's flying. And apparently the entire city of Los Angeles is now in hell. I'm like, I want to see that.
Yeah, that looked awesome. They're like, you can if you buy all these comic books. Like, I don't have time for that.
God damn it.
Yeah, those get expensive, too, if you don't catch up to them.
I thought
about going back to get those Buffy and Angels.
Put it on the magic shiny box.
Yeah. You tell me the story. Don't make me put the story in my head.
Motherfucker.
But so I think the guy who runs the show, his name's like Andrew Dabb. Okay. And I've never really been like involved in the supernatural fandom much. Like I didn't realize it was as big as it is.
Yeah, me neither.
And so not burying my lead, like I love the finale. Aww. Like I got emotional.
I have only seen bits and I have not watched the finale from beginning to end. I have seen bits and pieces of it, but I have not watched it from beginning to end.
I thought, like, I think I told you this, like the way to end it was, I thought they did the best job you could. Like it was a solid ending to the show.
Yeah, I agree.
It hit a lot of notes that I thought did a great job.
It seemed like that was the best. I feel like that was the best way you could end a show like that.
Yeah, without it feeling like, oh, yep, I saw that coming.
Which I mean, some of it you know once like you were talking about, like with Dean, like once that happened and you were like, okay, like you kind of saw where it was going, but you're like, all right, like this feels like an ending.
Yeah, for sure. So
I also like the fact that they ended like their seasonal arc. They ended in the episode before, so that way the last episode of the series didn't have anything to do with a particular storyline.
Agreed. I thought that was smart.
It was just about, it was a penultimate to the show.
Yeah.
And they ended the season last episode basically. And this was just like almost like an extra love letter.
Yeah. Yeah, like, so basically, like, if you're like, well, I didn't like this ending, somebody said, like, you could just watch episode 19 where they're riding off in the sunset, and that could be your series ending.
Sure.
Or you can watch this other one, you can say, like, okay, here's how the series actually ends.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much you know about the season, so I'll just kind of hit a few key points. So basically what's happening in this season is that Chuck, God, and this is the only thing that I kind of didn't like about the season, like at least how they ended it, but basically Chuck God is like, you know what? I'm the writer of all this stuff. Everything is happening because of me. There's no free will. There's none of this. And I'm ending everything. And so he starts destroying all these worlds, and he's going to save, the one we know, the supernatural dimension that we watch and have followed for 15 years. That's the last one. And so you're seeing Dean and Sam kind of fighting this like existential crisis of like, well, did we really do all this stuff, or was it all Chuck? Like, what's it mean? And I liked it up to the point at the end. I'm not sure how much the COVID stuff kind of messed with this, because I think they filmed like the last 4 or 5 episodes post COVID.
Yeah. I think that's right.
And so I don't know how much of the basically episode 19, what you'd consider like the season finale, how much of that you've seen. But essentially what happens is they get the kid, I don't remember what his name is. Jack.
Yes.
Jack is basically like essentially getting billed to be the new god. And it's kind of one of those like plot devices to be like, oh, well, God did all this stuff. He killed one of his sons, and Jack soaked up all this power. Then he soaked up all God's power. Now God,
which I thought he died. That was that was one thing you could answer for me. I thought he died. I thought he died like way back.
He died at the end of season 15 because Chuck killed him.
Right.
And then Death brought him back.
Okay.
And because she brought him back from the Empty, which the person that runs the Empty was pissed about because it was basically like setting like everything. Like what you've kind of learned from this season, and the finale does a real good job of kind of tying this in, is the reason there's so much chaos going on is because there's tons of different people, entities, angels, gods, fucking with the natural order of stuff.
Uh-huh.
You know, like when Dean dies, Sam brings him back. When Sam dies, Dean brings him back.
Right.
You know, when Castiel dies, somebody brings him back.
Yeah.
And it just kind of messes with the whole, like, just natural order.
Okay.
And so they bring Jack back. They work with him, kind of hiding him from Chuck. Because, and the whole idea, like, early on is that they basically were going to use Jack as, like, a atomic bomb, essentially.
Uh-huh.
And he was the only thing that could kill God.
Okay.
But Sam and Dean have this, you know, battle with like, well, we got to find a better way. And they don't use him to kill God, but Jack dies and goes to the Empty and gets brought back again from the Empty and essentially becomes like this big sponge that is absorbing all this power.
You remember earlier when we said this, the show has a very Days of Our Lives feel? Right there. Right there.
And like, I'm not real happy with a lot of how, like, it definitely felt like plot devices. You know, it's like, well, okay, we're stuck here. What do we do? Well, let's do this. Let's do that. Well, why? How does it make sense that he comes back? It's like it's a TV show. He comes back.
Yeah.
So they
shut the fuck up, Tom.
So he sucks all the power from God. Now God is basically just this mortal person, and you see Chuck kind of groveling and like sad and like. I kind of felt like that was like, well, you deserve that because you kind of been an asshole all season.
Right.
But it still felt kind of weird to me to have like who your God is for millennias.
Yeah. Now
just being this groveling thing. And Jack is now like the new God, but he's not really taking on the God moniker.
All right.
And they never
All hail Jack.
Yeah.
Praise be to Jack.
But they never touch back on that, which I find really interesting.
Well, they didn't touch back on it because it's over.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, and I didn't know if like in the epilogue they tied to it or, you know, like it felt like to me, it felt like one of those things like you'd see like Chuck, you know, working a restaurant job or something and almost like
he's
finding
a busboy.
Yeah. And kind of like finding his like, godliness back again. You know, like figuring out why he loved humanity, figuring out why he created all this stuff. Like almost like a mini redemption story for him.
Okay.
You know, because I mean, like, to be fair, like, if Chuck was really God, like in real world, like that's got to be a tough job. Like that can't be a fun gig.
Yeah, yeah.
And at times,
but again, I feel like the reason they didn't mess with any of that is because like it's over. Like we ended the season, and now we're gonna end the show, and the show isn't about. The show isn't about God and demons and angels and monsters and the show is about none of those things. The show is about Sam and Dean, and that's all you get. That's all you get in the finale is Sam and Dean.
Oh yeah. Which I read and heard a couple interviews. The plan was for the ending to have more people in it. But when they went back to filming, they essentially had to have everybody on quarantine for 2 weeks before they could be on set.
Right.
And it was one of those things, it's like, you know, we couldn't tell all these people to leave their families and come up here for probably very little pay, like considering that they'd be in a hotel for 2 weeks.
Yeah, they'd be in a hotel for 2 weeks to be in a scene, to be in a like
scene or two.
Yeah, like 2 scenes tops.
But I kind of feel like the way they ended it worked better because it's kind of like how the show started. It's just Sam and Dean.
Yeah.
The only thing I'll tie back to I think it might have been the episode before the episode 19. There's a part where God essentially wipes out. He Thanos's Earth so that the only living creatures on Earth are Sam, Dean, and Jack.
Okay.
And essentially like he does that because he's pissed because Sam and Dean aren't doing what he wants, like kind of how he's envisioned the ending.
Uh-huh.
And so the asshole thing that he does, Jack has this feeling, is like, oh my God, I feel a presence.
Yeah.
And so they drive out and they go to this gas station, and Dean finds a dog. And so you imagine, like, these guys have been alone for weeks, just the three of them, nobody else around.
Yeah.
And they drive out and they find this living dog. And Dean, throughout the series, doesn't like animals. He doesn't want dogs in the car. And it's funny because Sam drops a line. He's like, well, you're not going to let him ride shotgun. Or he says, like, you're going to let him ride in baby? He's like, yeah, I mean, we're not going to let him ride shotgun. I mean, unless you're okay with that. But then, Sam runs back in to get Jack, and Dean looks up, and he sees almost Chuck out there like Pennywise, just waving at him. And he snaps his fingers, and the dog disappears.
Aww.
Yeah.
Dick move.
Very much like, oh, yeah, you know why that dog was still there? Because I wanted to do this.
Jerk.
Yeah, that was like where and I think there's a lot of season there, maybe, that they could have done like this maybe earlier in the season. But again, this could have been more of a, and they said that they didn't rewrite a lot of that, but it felt very much like isolation, and like it fit very much with how the filming of it probably took place with a limited number of people. Yeah. But they defeat God, and then we go into the season or the series finale. Right. Episode 20. Like I said, I felt extremely emotional in this because for multiple reasons. Like, this is a show that's been around for 15 years. I wouldn't say this has been like you said, I've dipped my toes back and forth in it, but it's always kind of been there for you. Like, it's like, the trusty, like, friend you haven't talked to for a year and a half, and you call them and they're like, just like no time's passed. Okay. I could see that. So you see the guy. I'm not sure how much of the ending you've seen, but you get the guys back at the bunker. They have trouble finding some like normal hunting. So I'm not sure how much time goes by, but you get to see Dean go to a pie festival. He loves pie, which a lot of people I've listened to kind of felt like it's like, oh, this is kind of like taking a dog out that's going to die for one last great, amazing day. You take him for all the things he likes. And he's just going to fucking die. Which when I saw, I'm like, oh my God, is that really what happened? Wait a minute, is that what happened to my dog? Yeah. I took her out for cheeseburgers. No, they went to a farm upstate. Oh, yeah, your dog did. Yeah. Don't do that. Don't do that. Had me worried. But the episode, and I'm not sure how much you watch, but definitely has kind of a monster of the week feel. Like, yes. You could have put this episode in the middle of any season, really. Yeah, I think I've seen like the big bits, but the interconnecting threads, I think, is probably what I haven't seen. So they go and they eat pie, and then what happens after that? Yeah, so they go, they eat pie, and then you see like the monster attack. So it's these guys in skeleton masks. They break into a house. They kill the dad, cut the mom's tongue out, and they kidnap the kids. Oh. And when all this was happening, because they're not really clear if basically all supernatural things are gone or not, because you don't see them do any other hunting things. Uh-huh. So at this point, I assumed that it was just people. Like, there was going to be some kind of symbolism of like, now people are the evil things on Earth. Oh, shit. That's depressing. Ooh, but it's not. They go up, they look at it, they investigate, and they kind of go through it pretty quick. Like, all this happens. Thank God, monsters and monsters. Yeah. This happens. Praise be to Jack. This happens all in like the first 20, 30 minutes of the episode. And they find out from their dad's book, which was great to see that come back, that this was a case that he worked in like 86. And they figure out that it's vampires, and they investigate where the next attack's going to happen. And, like in the first 20 minutes, like this is very much kind of like an episode in itself. Like, yeah, they would figure out where the nest, they capture one of the things, they figure out where the nest is, they fight it, the kids go home, everybody's happy. Right. But it's a series finale, so it doesn't end as well as, episode 15. No, it does not. So they capture one of them, figure out where the nest is. There's a nice little battle that goes on where they cut off some of the vampire's head. Oh, we're killing things. Yeah. We're being Sam and Dean. We're kicking ass. The odd part about this, so there's like 5 or 6 vampires. They kill like half of them, and 2 of them are holding Dean down after the other one knocks out Sam. Uh-huh. And this vampire from season 1 or 2 shows up. Like, it's supposed to be a big deal. It's like some vampire girl that they let go. Okay. And so he's like, oh my God. I think her name's Jenny in the show. It's like, oh my God, Jenny, it's you. Like, oh, crazy. Like, that's weird. And like, you're like,
small world, huh?
Yeah. And like, you're like, well, wait, okay. And then Sam gets up, cuts her head off. You're like, wait a minute. Like, that seemed like that could have been any Vampire USA, and it had to be some Jenny. Like, there's no loose end there. Like, nobody's wondering what happened to Jenny the Vampire 13 years ago. So at this point in the episode, I'm thinking that maybe this is going to be like their greatest hits. Like, you're going to see them going to like some little places, like 10 or 15-minute battles of all these other like creatures that got away.
Oh, they do it to a montage.
Kind of, yeah. But after they cut her head off, the last two vampires start fighting. One goes over onto Dean, and one goes over to Sam. Sam takes care of his, but you see, as Dean's fighting one of the vampires, you see a spike, like a big rod hanging out of one of the wooden posts.
Uh-oh.
Dean runs at the vampire. Spoilers, everybody. Vampire picks him up, shoves him on that spike.
Nice.
And then Sam comes back, cuts off the vampire's head. And this is where it gets kind of emotional because, you know, Sam doesn't obviously know what happened.
Right.
And he's like, all right, well, let's go get the kids because they basically told the kids to run. And Dean is like, he can't, right?
Yeah.
He knows this is a kill shot kind of scenario. So in this moment, you get Dean saying goodbye to Sam.
Right. Okay, wait. First, of all the ways to go, do you feel like Dean should have had a more like epic kind of death?
You know what? Why this probably got me so emotional is because my grandpa actually fought vampires, and that's how he died. No, the reason this got me so emotional.
Damn it.
The reason this got me so emotional is because, like, I think in a TV show you would expect that, right? Like, you think of Buffy's season, was it 4? When she jumped to sacrifice herself? 5? So, like, you see that, and it's like, it's very much not a realistic death, right? She's jumping through this portal, stopping this big, massive thing, right?
Stopping the end of the world.
Yeah, you see that, and you're like, I mean, it's sad, but after it's over, it's like, well, it's Buffy. It's a TV show.
Right.
But with this death, I mean, yeah, it's a vampire killing him, but it's not like this big supernatural thing, right? Like and he says it really well, is, you know, he's like, you know, I always knew it would end this way. I just didn't think it would be today. And you think about that, like, death's coming at some point for everybody.
Yeah.
You don't know where, you don't know how.
Yeah.
And this felt like, you know, like an accident, like somebody taking too quick.
Now I have existential dread. Thanks, Shawn.
You're welcome. But it's like, you know, car crash or something like that. Like, it was a moment that you weren't expecting to happened. And it wasn't something, it was very relatable too, right? It's like somebody could fall on something like this, or somebody could, you know, trip and, you know, have like these things happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, basically you're saying like the fact that his death could have happened to, you know, not really. The fact that, like, even after 15 years, like, this is how it ends. Like, he just basically, like, you know, gets pushed. You know, he gets pushed the wrong way, and just today, you know, wasn't his lucky day.
Yeah, and I mean, you've watched this for 15 years. There's been numerous times that these guys have gotten what would feel like a mortal wound, right, or something that was, you know, like they just missed the stuff for 15 years. And here it was, you just took your eye off the ball for a second and had that happen, right?
Yeah.
You know, you look down while you're driving the car and, oh my gosh, there's a deer. Or, you know, you don't look twice when you cross the street and bam, you get hit by a car. Or,
yeah.
You know, I mean, it was a very more realistic, real world type of way for somebody to go.
Yeah.
And, you know, the whole moment after it happens, Sam is like, you know, he's like, hey, let's go get the kids. He's like, oh, you know, I don't think I'm going anywhere. And he sees what's happening. He's like, well, I'm going to get the med kit. You know, we're going to fix this kind of thing. Cause that's what they've been doing for 15 years.
Right. It's like, it's fine. I'll just bring you back. You're fine. Walk it off. I
honestly like Jensen Ackles, the guy who plays Dean. He's going to be in The Boys season 3. but he's a really great actor because he in this moment, like it was just hit all the emotional notes, the little subtleties. Like, so as Sam is saying, like, "Hey, I'm gonna go and get, I'm gonna get the first aid kit," and Dean's like, "No," and he's just like, "Just stay with me." And the way he says it is definitely somebody's like they know they're going. It's like, if you're with somebody on their deathbed and they kind of feel like, oh, it's happening soon. You're like, "Hey, I'm gonna go grab a burger," and they're like, "No, just stay with me.
Yeah,
hold off on that burger.
Just wait a second. You can go in a minute."
But they had a really good kind of back and forth. He gets Sam right up next to him.
Yeah,
and I always think like whenever people tell you this, like it just, I guess it carries so much weight. He's like, "Oh, there he is. There's my baby brother." But he says, "Come here," and he says, "I'm so proud of you."
Aww.
And he goes on this little spiel about just how he was the stronger one. Sam was, he didn't take any of Dad's crap. It was very much like brotherly love, because these guys have been through a lot.
Right.
And, Sam still at the end is basically telling us like, "Oh, we can fix this. We can figure this out." And Dean's like, "No, like, promise me you won't bring me back because we know that never ends well."
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's kind of what I said earlier. Like, that's kind of been the series.
Shit goes wrong. Stop fucking with shit.
He tells him that the moment when, and they had some good callbacks to the first pilot episode. He's like, that moment outside your college dorm room when Dad wasn't back from his hunting trip, I probably sat out there for hours because I was scared of what you would say. Because remember back in season 1, like these guys were like not on speaking terms. Like they hadn't seen each other for a couple years, I think.
Yeah.
So like that pulled at the heartstrings. There's a good little back and forth that's from the first episode, but the characters are switched. So in episode 1 of season 1, Dean is telling Sam, he's like, "I can't do this on my own." And Sam says, "Yes, you can." And Dean says, "Well, I don't want to." And then the reverse of this, when Dean's starting to go, Sam's like, "I can't do this on my own." And Dean says, "Yes, you can." And Sam says, "I don't want to."
Yeah.
So it's the same thing, just reversed.
Okay. I didn't know.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of, I know somebody I saw wrote was like, either this is like a great coincidence or terrible writing, which I feel like when you do these things, like getting good callbacks like that, I think are good.
Yeah. Well, especially like I said, like, like Joe Schmo off the street isn't going to, walk in, watch the series finale, and like those, like when you're making a series finale of a show that's running 15 years, like you're not trying to appeal to, you're not writing that show. You're not creating that episode for Joe Schmo off the fucking street that hasn't watched a single thing. Like you're watching it for your ride or die fans that have been with you for 15 years. So yeah, like that's your audience. That's the audience that you're gonna play to.
And I know a lot of people were kind of griping that, like, especially with Dean's death this way, it's like, this is the legendary Dean. How could he die this way? And like, there's a lot of people in history that have died like in ways you're like, oh, really? Like Jack Daniels died from gangrene because he kicked a safe.
Yeah.
Like there's all these kind of like things that happen. And I think some people are trying to say like this really kind of lessened the Dean character. But he just got done defeating God. He's gone through this thing for 15. It hasn't been 15 years. Like a lot of seasons cross over where it's like the next day.
Yeah.
So these guys have been going nonstop for multiple years. And finally, it's a thing like this that happens. And he's like, okay, well, we've got like the big stuff done. Now it's time for me to go.
Yeah.
And
and also like you said, like everybody, shit happens. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I don't think it's, I don't feel like it's, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, I don't feel like it's, a bad thing for the great Dean Winchester to just, like take his eye off the ball for a second and shit happens.
Yeah. I'd been more pissed if what season 19 was where you just see him drive off in the sunset. It's like, all right, like that seems that seems lazy and safe. It's like we didn't really end the season.
Right.
Or if this was like a big flash forward and they're both in like a nursing home, it's like, all right.
Yeah, I see. Like, okay, so when we were initially, so I felt like the show could end one of three ways. Either they're dead, either they get killed, and the show ends. They ride off into the sunset, and the show ends. You know, they grow old, and and that's the end. Or, I mean, I feel like, or that's it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, yeah. And that's what I thought. And that's why we're just Dean dying this way. It's like, oh, well, I didn't really expect that.
Or it just cuts off like the fucking Sopranos, and then you're just mad.
So in like Dean's final moment, his last thing that he asks of Sam is basically like he tells him, he's like, I need you to tell me it's okay.
Aw.
And they embrace, and like Sam tells him it's okay, you can go.
Yeah.
And I mean, I feel like any moment with like, I've been around a few family members that have passed away, like been there as they pass away, and it's not easy.
No, same here.
And it's never like this moment, right?
One star.
Yeah, you might have like some conversations before it gets bad, but at that point you're just kind of watching them. So I mean, obviously for thematic purposes, it kind of goes through it really quick. But so Dean passes away.
Yeah.
And Sam continues to live in the bunker for a little bit, gets a phone call, and continues to hunt. And then we get to flashback to Dean and where he ends up. And he ends up in heaven. And one of the things that kind of got emotional with me on this too is the heaven that he's in is kind of like the ideal version of heaven that I have. So I don't know if you remember previous seasons, but whenever they're in heaven, everybody's basically stuck in these boxes where they relive their most best memories.
Okay, I didn't know, but okay.
Yeah. So it's not like a horrible place, but it's kind of like watching your favorite movie on repeat. It's just you. You're not interacting. You're interacting with holograms essentially.
Okay.
And so when Dean gets up there, he walks over and he sees Bobby.
Oh, okay.
And he's confused because he's like, "Well, what memory is this?" And Bobby's like, "It's not a memory, you idiot." And he learns that when Jack became God, he essentially took down all the walls and made heaven this like open world where, like he says, Rufus lives over here. Your mom and dad live over there.
Which one's Rufus?
Rufus was the black guy that worked with Bobby. He was about Bobby's age. Like Bobby and him were hunters back in like the 70s.
Okay.
So yeah, so you get that moment with Bobby, and it's the actual Bobby because there has been like 2 or 3 alternate Bobbies that have showed up. I won't get into that, but it's the whole dimensional stuff.
All right.
But it's the Bobby that we know of from seasons past.
Okay.
So I loved getting that moment because it's, his death was, when I think of like top 10 deaths on screen or deaths, in TV shows, his is one of them. Because again, it was a very normal thing. Like he just got a stray bullet, shot him, and killed him.
Yeah.
We get that little interaction. Dean drinks the beer that he drank for the first time with his dad.
Oh, nice.
And Bobby asks him how it tastes. He says, it tastes like piss, just like I remember. He's like, God, this is great. He jumps in Bobby, or doesn't jump in Bobby. That'd be a whole different heaven. He's like, Bobby, this is the memory I always wanted. He jumps in the Impala and he goes for a drive because he says he wants to go for a drive.
All right.
The clever thing here too, so when he's getting ready
Bobby's just like hanging out, like where they're in heaven, but like where, like what's it look like?
It just looks like Vancouver.
All right.
It's very woodsy, but they're at like a single like room saloon kind of thing, like an old wooden shack. And his car's there, so he wants to jump in it. And before he gets in it, him and Bobby kind of have this like, or Bobby senses like, obviously his brother's not there,
right?
And so Bobby says he'll be along soon. Like time works a lot differently here.
Okay.
So he jumps in the Impala, turns it on. Carry On Wayward Son starts playing.
Yeah.
And he's like, God, I love this song. And so this is where we get our montage.
Oh, gotta have a montage.
And they cut into, I know the words of Carry On Wayward Son, but there's I think it's Naomi does a rendition of it where it's slowed down and more instrumental. And like when you listen to the words that way, it's really good. I like it.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. It plays
I'm going to take
well.
your word for it. Because I don't know.
Because when you listen to the song...
I'm a sucker for a good cover, but I don't know.
I mean, that song very much is about like kind of like death and moving on, and like you don't really get that from the upbeat, you know, dead, now you're dead, now you're dead, now you're dead. So we see him driving Baby, that's the Impala, and they start flashing back to Earth.
Okay.
With Sam. And
wait, what's Sam? So I'm guessing Sam is the montage?
They flash back and forth. So
okay.
They flash back and it's Sam about the age that we left him.
All right.
And he's got a little kid with him that's wearing coveralls with Dean on it. Like the name Dean.
Oh, okay.
So it's like, oh, Sam had a kid.
So
he
stole a kid and he named it Dean.
Stole a kid, named him Dean. He became the vampire that he fought. So then you see it flash back to Dean driving. Then you flash back and you see Sam playing catch with this kid, like at a house. You see a wife in the background.
Oh, there is a wife. Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, like, did he just find? Okay, is the woman familiar? Like, is it somebody that you've seen before?
They have her kind of like shaded, and he was kind of like hooking up with this girl in this season. And so a lot of people were like, you know, it could be her, it could be somebody else, but it's basically alluded to that he's starting to settle down.
Okay.
But the idea is you're seeing Dean driving, like in his time, it's like been like less than a minute.
Right.
But on Earth, it's been, 5 years. And then it shoots up 10 years where he's playing catch with this kid.
Okay.
Flashback to Dean driving, then you flash back to Sam, and he's teaching his son, or helping his son with like some work. But you never seen him like taking him out on the road or anything. So like the question I think I have is like, well, are they hunting? Are they not hunting? The big controversy out of this is when they flash back, you see old Sam, but the wig that he had on, or at least how they colored his hair, kind of looked a little rough.
Ooh.
And when you see like Sam too, like the guy who plays Sam, Jared something, starts with the P, he's a pretty ripped dude.
Right.
So when you see like old, like, 60 something Sam, like he's not like, he doesn't look old except for his hair. But there is a cool moment. He pulls the tarp off the car and he's sitting in the car as it flashes back to Dean driving it in heaven.
Okay.
You flash back again to Dean driving. He pulls up to a bridge, gets out. And then you flash back to Sam on his deathbed.
Oh.
So he's like in hospice, it looks like.
All right.
And as he's sitting there, his son walks up and he kind of like reaches out and grabs his dad's hand, Sam. And on his forearm, he's got that anti-possession tattoo.
Okay.
So the whole question there is like, well, did he just get it because his dad had it? Did he get it because him and his dad were hunting?
What's that? That looks cool. I want one.
Well, and I mean, even then, like, let's say they stopped hunting. Like, Dean didn't want that for his family. And he's just like, well, my dad has this tattoo. And he told me my uncle had this tattoo that I'm named after. And so he got one too.
Yeah.
Which in a roundabout way is protecting him.
Yeah.
And the moment that like almost had me in tears even more than the rest of the series or this episode is he looks at his dad and he says, Dad, it's okay. You can go now.
Aww.
And so you see the thing beep and then it flashes to heaven.
Oh, and the circle is full.
Yeah. And Dean's looking out across the water and he just says, hello, Dean. And they embrace and hug. And that's how it ends. You get a little like drone shot coming out. And they both end up in heaven, and it's just like it's always been. It's Sam and Dean.
Nice. Out of curiosity, I know this has nothing to do with anything you've said so far, but what happened? So heaven's all like, Vancouver woods and stuff like that. What's happening in hell? Did that ever get finalized?
No. So the redhead, Crowley's mom.
Okay.
In this season, she became the ruler of hell, and she kind of said no more Crossroad demon deals. Like she kind of put the hammer down and made it a little bit more hell light, but they never touch back on that, even in this part.
Okay,
because like that would have been kind of interesting to see, like, okay, well, what's going on here?
Yeah, and
I know Jensen Ackles or Jason Ackles. I think it's Jensen Ackles. Yeah, Jensen Ackles. He's already been saying like there's probably going to be another like mini season in like 4 or 5 years. He started his own production company, and I think his goal is to kind of retake over this property and do a mini series. 'Cause I guess the showrunner and him and a couple other people didn't get along the greatest.
Oh, okay.
Which stuff I didn't know. Like
that's crazy. After fucking 15 years, you would think that like
the original showrunner is the guy who's running The Boys now, and the DAP guys took over like year 7, I think 7 or 8.
I see.
So, and the other cool thing, and this is totally like not in the show, but you see the end credits, the the end song you hear every time.
Sure. Yeah. Okay.
They kind of cut to black, and then you see the 2 main actors on the thing, and they say, "Hey, we just want to tell the fans, thank you for 15 years. It's been a great run. We've enjoyed it all, and thank you." And it flashes up, and you see all the crew, which I thought was really interesting.
Huh. Okay.
But that's how it ends. And there's 2 other things, non-season finale, I want to talk about, but I'm going to let you, if you have any questions.
No, actually, no, I'm good. I mean, it seems like a proper way to end it, where you just have, I'm sure it's like hey, we just want to say thanks for 15 years. Bye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
like
wish
one of those.
Watching this made me wish that I watched this week to week, that I was a little bit more invested in it. Because the ending was, I think, just so like, just even on its own by itself, I think would be a good episode. But having all that investment in it made it even more to me. So the one thing that there's 2 things.
Okay.
And it gets into kind of the weird fandom side of this.
All right.
So in episode 18, Dean, Castiel are stuck in the bunker, and Death is coming for him because she's pissed.
All right.
And Castiel and Dean are basically set themselves up in a little bit of a side bunker. Like they put up a little ward spell or something to keep her out, but it won't keep her out forever.
Okay.
And Castiel tells him, it's like, well, when I escape from the empty, whoever runs the empty said, if I experience one moment of happiness, they would be able to come into our realm because they're not allowed to. And like
who's they?
The empty, whoever runs the empty. I can't remember what her name is. I think it's been a guy, been a girl, but there's like a name for him. Okay. It's like an ambiguous name.
Okay.
And, basically the empty person is pissed at Death. So essentially if that happens, like she gets Castiel and she could get Death, whoever's running the empty.
Okay. Okay.
And so in my head, when he's like, if I experience one moment of happiness, she would be able to come to Earth, the empty. And in my head, because it's CW and I'm thinking of Angel, I'm like, it'd be kind of funny, but extremely inappropriate if Dean was like, you don't mean like that Angel show, do you? But apparently, Richard, well, okay, first off, so Castiel has a great, I love you.
Like a big sacrifice moment.
Yeah, and he's just like giving his emotions. Like he's an angel, he's ambiguous. He's not really male or female. He's just an angel. He's just a being.
Yeah.
Going on about, he's played a guy in a guy's vessel the whole time. But he's telling Dean how much he loves him, how much he cares for him, everything you would expect from somebody that's been through so much.
Yeah.
Empty opens right as Death comes in. They both get sucked in the empty. Last time you see Castiel. And to me, when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, that's like an emotional moment between 2 friends, 2 like people who've been together, like brothers in war.
Yeah.
But apparently, Richard, in the fandom, there is what they've called Destiel, where in the fandom, they want Dean and Castiel basically to have like a intimate sexual relationship.
All right.
And from that, so I finished the season. I'm kind of going through checking.
Oh, Dean waifu.
Yeah. And so I'm watching or seeing stuff and they're like, oh my gosh, it was such a great moment where Castiel came out. And I was like, wait a second, what? What'd I miss? Because first off, Castiel's an angel. So I didn't really see, and Dean's through 15 years has never hinted that he's oh, actually, I'm gay.
Yeah.
There's been nothing like that. And Castiel's never been like that either. He's been completely asexual through this whole thing, which I think most angels are. And so it was just this weird, because of this fandom, people were saying that well, the show did this for the fans. And I'm kind of curious, and I wish you would have probably seen that or at least known a little bit about it. Because to me, it almost feels is it a situation where 2 guys can't say they love each other without being oh, he said love you, they're gay.
I mean, I hope not.
I do too, because that's the way I took it, is if you were about to sacrifice yourself for me, or I was about to sacrifice myself for you, and somebody's videoing it. I'm like, oh, Richard, I just want to let you know that I've always loved you, and I just you've always filled me with happiness. And the person puts it on YouTube is like, 2 podcasters come out. Richard filled him with happiness. You know what that means?
They really filled him with happiness.
Yeah. And I don't think anybody's like, with
Destiel. Fuck you, it's emotional.
And I don't think anybody's like that is like on this Destiel train are like, they're not like saying like this is like a bad thing if it was true. It just felt like like fans trying to reach into like this like fan fiction.
I feel like it sounds super reaching to me.
Yeah. And I think the guy who plays Castiel had done some interviews about him coming out. I haven't read any of those or anything. Like Castiel coming out. And so I'm kind of curious how that plays, if that's just kind of like the meta, like somebody thinking way into like the show.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, I feel like it feels reaching.
Because the other thing that like makes me feel like this is reaching too, Richard, is because there's also a lot of fan fiction, and I didn't realize this was a thing. Except I think they kind of mentioned it a little bit in the Chuck
Shawn,
episode.
Where have you been exploring on the internet lately?
I've had to clear my history so many times. Apparently, Richard, there is a ton of fan fiction out there that is under the category of wincest.
I knew it. How did I know you were going there?
Where people are like, Sam and Dean totally blow each other on the road.
God damn it.
And you're just like, can't people just enjoy stuff without like making it icky?
Can't they just be brothers?
Like, yeah, I mean, the way he looked at him in episode 22, like you could tell they've blown each other. Like, no,
God.
I don't think they have.
No, they're just brothers. Just let them be brothers.
Are they just brothers? And what's funny is I'm pretty sure they made fun of that like back in season 6 when they're at like the convention and they learn about fanfic. And they're seeing like some stuff, but like, wait a minute, don't they know we're brothers? But yeah, I just thought those were two like things that I didn't even know about, not being really in the fandom, and then seeing that being like, it's a little bit of a head scratcher, but I mean, yeah, I mean, to each their own, I guess.
I'm saying like, I feel like, it's grasping at straws.
Yeah.
And I mean, you find fanfic about anybody a fictional character banging any fictional character. I mean,
oh my God,
Rule
Richard.
30 for it.
This might be a little risque, but I've been reading some fan fiction about Game of Thrones, and you know that brothers and sisters have sex in that? It's by a guy.
By fan fiction, you mean the actual books?
It's by a guy named George R. Martin. George R. Martin.
George R.
But Supernatural was, to me, it was a great finale, great season. I definitely am excited for when my son gets to be about the age of like maybe 10 or 11 and starting it up with him.
Yeah. My oldest has been watching it. I have no idea where she's at in it though.
I can see it being a tough one. Like you get through like season 5, and if you're binging it, being like, I'm ready for a break, and then coming back to it after a couple years.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, I feel like someone needs to give me like a guide where they just go, okay, watch seasons 1 through 5 because they're amazing. Skip season 6 and 7 because whatever. Watch season, you know what I mean? Like I need somebody to be like, you gotta watch seasons 1 through 5. Then you need to watch, 8, 12, and 14. You know what I mean? Like,
well, it'd be almost if they could condense, like, because there's 327 episodes.
Jesus fuck.
So it's like, listen, can you condense this to like 120 where I touch every season?
Yeah.
Because I would imagine season 1 and 2 are probably you'd want to watch all the way through. How many
did you say? 327?
Yeah.
Jesus.
There's a ton. But my son, when I was watching this season, I was watching it here, and he came in to say hi and saw it, and I told him what it was. He's like, well, can I watch that? I'm like, well, maybe when you're like 11 or 12. He's like, well, what about 8? I was like, yeah, sure. Why not? Don't tell your mother. Why not?
That's 2 weeks. That's 2 weeks. If you watch 2 weeks, no sleep, back to back to back.
I don't think that's healthy.
No, it's not. Don't do that. I don't know why I need to say that, but don't do that.
Yeah, I think for you, I would say if you watch the last like 3 or 4 episodes, there is a really good episode in this season, though, that you might handpick where they go to Alaska because Chuck takes away all their luck. So it's kind of like the whole like D&D superhero where it's like, oh, you know why you did all these things? Because I gave you this luck and I took it away.
Oh, all right.
And so they go to this pool hall in Alaska to try to win some luck. It's a pretty good episode. But yeah, last 3 episodes of this season and that one I think are definitely ones you'd enjoy.
Nice.
But as I've been rambling on and not crying, which I'm proud of myself, Richard, what's some closing thoughts you have for Supernatural and our discussion for this evening?
Oh, geez. And you know what? I think you should give closing thoughts. You watched them all. You watched the finale. I think you should give your closing thoughts on not just the finale, but maybe just the show as a whole.
Yeah, I think, you never know how much you're going to miss something until it's gone.
Cinderella said that.
Yeah.
Don't know what you got till it's gone.
This show's been on for 15 years. It's been on half my life almost.
Yeah.
I've seen it through a bunch of different avenues. It's not like a show that they're going to write about like 100 years from now. Like it's not MASH.
Right.
But it's definitely something that it ran well. It did a good job. And I think it ended itself very well.
I mean, there's a reason it's been on for 15 years.
Yeah. It's done what it needs to do.
Mm-hmm.
And, if there was a season 16, I would watch it.
I mean, nobody can say that it was a bad show because it was on for 15 seasons. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you can't say that nobody liked it.
Only show to cross the WB and CW time and last. And I think they did a great job. And, it's like I said, like you have these shows that kind of fill your life up. Like I think I like Fresh Prince. I'm going back to watch that. But when you see those series finale episodes and the show's over and it's like, what's next?
Yeah.
And these things are just big parts of your life. And I'm definitely going to miss it. Excited to see what these guys do coming up. Like I said, Jensen Ackles is going to be on The Boys. And the other guy, Jared.
He's going to be Walker, Texas Ranger.
Yeah, he's going to be on the reboot for Walker, which will last 2 seasons.
If that.
You know what? I say that, but Magnum P.I. has been on for like a shit ton. The remake. Yeah. Hawaii 5-0 has been too.
Yep, and I haven't watched a single bit of it. It's that fucking it's that network television shit, man. That shit'll they'll just put it on.
Mm-hmm.
They'll just play it forever.
Yep, you just kill off the character that wants too much money and bring somebody else in.
Yeah, that's why fucking SVU's been on since 1845.
I hate procedurals, but we're not a procedural, Richard. And actually, the other thing I noticed too. A podcast I listened to that covers Supernatural called The Crossroads. They were playing the Supernatural RPG, the tabletop.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to do a one-off like Halloween month for that.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, I thought that'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, that's not bad.
So I'm going to work on that idea. But let me do a little bit of housekeeping as this episode comes to an end. But, oh man, is this episode 327? No, we're way past that. This is 342. That would be pretty sweet.
Yeah.
Visit our website.
Just stick it, but just stick it in the middle.
Visit our website, we're languagebros.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at languagebro. Email us at bros@languagebros.com. And if you want to join our Patreon, it's at patreon.com/languageofbromance. And we thank our patrons, Wendy and Aaron.
You guys are awesome. So awesome. You're our wayward sons.
Yeah. You're our heaven. In our heaven, you're there with us.
Yeah.
They're
hanging out, drinking that piss beer.
Like, you know what? In our heaven, you're not there. All right. Well, anything else before I close her out?
No, I'm good.
All right. Well, that's all the bros for this show. I'm Shawn.
And I'm Richard.
And remember, don't be a why.
Be a why
be
not.
A why not. Carry on my wayward son.
We're going to get DMCA'd.
What?
We're going to get DMCA'd. Can't do the song. You gotta pay royalties.